On Christmas Eve in 1945, as festive cheers swept across the small Appalachian town of Fayetteville, West Virginia, tragedy struck the Sodder family and a mystery was born. That night, a fire consumed the Sodder home, and 5 of their 10 children were never seen again. Though initially presumed dead, no remains were ever recovered. What followed was a decades-long search, a parade of strange events, and a series of chilling possibilities that continue to baffle true crime enthusiasts and historians alike. More than 75 years later, the haunting question remains: did the Sodder children really perish in the fire, or were they taken? A silent night turns tragic. For Jenny Sodder, the horror began just after midnight. At 12:30 a.m. on Christmas morning, the mother of 10 answered a phone call from an unknown woman with a peculiar laugh. She dismissed it as a prank. But when she returned to bed, she noticed something odd. The doors were unlocked, the curtains open, and lights still on. Her children, 5 of whom had stayed up late, had ignored her bedtime instructions. She scolded them mentally, then fell back asleep. Roughly an hour later, she awoke to the choking grip of smoke. The Sodder family home was ablaze. Jenny and her husband George managed to escape with 4 of their children, but Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty, aged 5 to 14, were trapped upstairs. Despite George's frantic attempts to save them, smashing windows, scaling walls, trying to use his trucks as ladders, the fire was too intense. The house collapsed into cinders. It seemed like a tragic freak accident, but that was only the beginning. No bodies, no closure. In the smoldering ruins, firefighters found nothing. No bones, no remains, not a single trace of the 5 children. Authorities claimed the fire was hot enough to incinerate them completely, a theory that the Sodders never believed. George and Jenny, shattered by grief, began asking questions. Too many things did not add up. A fire that burned for just 30 to 45 minutes couldn't have cremated 5 bodies entirely. They knew this. Later, an independent crematorium confirmed that even the most intense blazes sustained for hours still leave behind identifiable bone fragments. And so began the Sodders' transformation from bereaved parents into amateur detectives, embarking on a lifelong quest for truth. A town cloaked in secrets. Fayetteville in the 1940s was a small coal mining town with a tight-knit Italian-American community. George Sodder, originally from Sardinia, was known for his outspoken political views, particularly his opposition to Italy's fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. His opinions weren't always welcome. Shortly before the fire, a man trying to sell George life insurance had stormed off after being rejected. His parting words were chilling: "Your house is going to go up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." That man, incidentally, was later part of the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident caused by faulty wiring. George, however, had recently had the wiring inspected by the power company and given the all-clear. What's more, the phone line to the Sodder house was found cut, not damaged by fire, but deliberately severed. And the family's ladder, which George desperately searched for during the rescue, was discovered thrown down a nearby embankment 22 meters from its usual resting place. One neighbor even recalled seeing someone stealing a mechanical block and chain from George's garage that night. The man confessed to cutting the phone line but denied involvement in the fire. The deeper they dug, the stranger the case became. A fire that burned too clean. In 1949, George ordered a new excavation of the fire site. This time, a few fragments of vertebrae were found, but experts at the Smithsonian concluded that the bones had never been exposed to fire and were likely from the soil used to fill in the basement dirt George had bulldozed in days after the tragedy in an emotional bid to move on. The fire chief had earlier claimed to find internal organs at the scene, but no records existed of such evidence. Skepticism grew. Compounding the mystery, several people began reporting sightings of the children in the months and years after the fire. Sightings and strange leads. In Charleston, West Virginia, a woman working at a hotel said she saw 4 children resembling the Sodders on Christmas morning in 1945. They were accompanied by 2 men and 2 women, all speaking Italian, and acted evasive when she tried to interact with the children. Another woman, who ran a roadside diner, claimed she served breakfast to 5 children matching their descriptions the morning after the blaze. Other reports placed the children in various parts of the country from New York to Texas, even as far as Mexico. George and Jenny followed these leads relentlessly. They hired a private investigator. They drove across the country in pursuit of whispers, blurry photographs, and gut feelings. George even believed he saw his daughter Betty in a magazine photo taken at a New York school. He went there only to be turned away by school officials. These tips were often dead ends, but they fueled the family's hope and their determination. The billboard that became a landmark. By 1952, the Sodders were convinced their children had not died in the fire. That year, they erected a large billboard along Route 16 near the site of the tragedy. It bore the children's names and photographs, asking the public for help and offering a $5,000 reward. Over time, the reward increased to $10,000. For decades, that billboard remained a symbol of stubborn love, a question mark hanging over Fayetteville's picturesque hills. It was updated regularly with new theories and sightings, attracting visitors, journalists, and amateur sleuths. The case, once considered closed by authorities in 1950, lived on in the public imagination. A family forever changed. George died in 1969, never knowing what became of his children. Jenny wore black every day until her death in 1989, mourning not just the loss but the lack of closure. The surviving Sodder children grew up under the shadow of the fire, inheriting both the trauma and the mystery. Their granddaughter, Jenny Henthorne, later told The Independent that the tragedy remained a defining event in the family's life. She recalled how her father took his dying father, George, on one final trip to Texas to chase a lead. It didn't pan out. They drove home in silence. Possible explanations and lingering doubts. Skeptics, including some journalists and even local officials, believe the simplest answer is the most likely. The children died in the fire, and the unusual circumstances are a result of grief distorting memory and truth. Firefighters have speculated that the 55-gallon drums of gasoline stored in the Sodder basement could have intensified the fire's heat, making it theoretically possible for bodies to be completely consumed. Furthermore, when George bulldozed the site and buried it under 5 feet of dirt, it may have inadvertently acted like a crematorium. But others argue that too many details were left unexplained. Why did so many official accounts contradict one another? Why were there no definitive remains? Why did credible witnesses describe sightings of children resembling the Sodders? And why was there such urgency to conclude the investigation? As journalist Stacey Horn put it in her 2005 NPR investigation, there is enough genuine weirdness in this story that if it turns out the children didn't die in the fire, I would not be surprised. Legacy of a Christmas cold case. Today, the Sodder case lives on in books, podcasts, documentaries, and Reddit threads. It's often cited as one of the most enduring cold cases in American history, a tragic intersection of loss, suspicion, and unresolved questions. In a town now changed by time, the memory of that Christmas Eve fire still lingers. For those who passed by the old site or read the fading clippings, the story of Morris, Martha, Louis, Jenny Jr., and Betty is more than just a mystery. It's a reminder of the fragility of truth and the lengths to which love will go in search of it. If this mystery gripped you like it did us, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Got your own theories about the Sodder children? Drop them in the comments. We love reading your wild takes. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another deep dive into unsolved history. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction.